Flip in the classroom, engaging students inside and outside of the classroom. What is flipped learning? There's certainly a lot of definitions out there, and I think we all have different understanding of what flipped learning means. Here's one definition from the University of Texas at Austin. Flipped learning is an approach where students gain necessary knowledge before class and instructors guide students to actively and interactively clarify and apply that knowledge during class. They go on to provide this diagram that shows the interconnectedness of in-class and out-of-class activities. So it starts with students preparing to participate in in-class activities. Then during class, the focus is on students either independently or as groups working to apply those concepts and knowledge. And the key thing is that they receive feedback from their instructor. Then there's an after-class piece where students can check their understanding and extend their learning. So you can see that there's a in and out of class flow that happens so that the experience feels seamless. The common notion of flipped learning out there is that lectures are recorded as a video and that students review that on their own, and that essentially the video replaces the lecture, and that leaves room for the in-class time to be used for active learning. However, it's good to know that the content doesn't just have to be video. It can be anything from interactive tutorials. It can be screencast mini lectures like the ones you may create using Camtasia Relay or TechSmith Relay. It could be audio clips. It could even be e-textbook readings or just regular paper-based or electronic articles. Really what's important is that the flipped classroom has students reviewing content outside of class, and that becomes preparation for the in-class learning activities. Another hallmark of the flipped learning approach is that the in-class component comprises of interactive and applied learning activities, usually involving group work or collaborative work. Activities could be things like case studies, discussions, role plays, or peer instruction. So why use the flipped learning approach? There are various reasons that have surfaced in the literature, but of course we know from our own experiences. We know that students' attention spans are very, very short. So students are not necessarily willing or able to sit through long lectures. If content is presented to students so they can review it on their own, then they have the ability to process and reflect on that content before they come to an applied class. That can make a lot of difference. If they have some notion of what they're going to be doing in class, then the activity in class reinforces what they had been exposed to at home as part of the homework assignment. If the homework has an assessment piece to it, so if students are doing a quiz, for instance, then teachers can get a sense of where students are having difficulties. So if the flow is such that students do an activity, a reading or watch a video, if they answer some quiz type questions, the teacher can review those results in class and actually tailor the activity to reviewing those trouble spots. In that way, the in-class time is put to the best use possible. Students can also control the timing, the pace, as well as the place of learning when the content is provided online. We know that students learn differently. Some take longer than others to review content. The beauty of having online materials is that students can review on their own, and they can rewind or they can reread passages or whatever the case may be. And how many times do we in class feel like we're only perhaps reaching just a small fraction of the students in class? It's really hard and probably unrealistic to expect that everyone's going to be 100% with you 100% of the time when you're delivering the content in class in a lecture format. The online materials also add variety, and they change the pace of classroom activities. So it just adds variety, and variety does help to maintain engagement. When students are doing more application in class, then there tends to be deeper understanding of the content, and the core concepts that underpin the activities are better retained. Flipped learning definitely requires a change in roles. So of course we're very familiar with the traditional classroom. So basically the student is in class, the teacher lectures at them, the students take notes. Or it might be students are following very, very guided specific instructions to do something. Students are given homework, or students will take a test or exam. In terms of what students do at home, they complete the homework that they're assigned, and quite often it's very structured and removed from direct application. The flipped approach is such that the student is receiving content from the teacher outside of class. So instead of the teacher telling the content in a lecture format, the student receives the content from their teacher in a variety of ways. Could be video, could be traditional text articles, could be interactive tutorials. Then students have that time to review the content on their own at their own pace. So when students come back to class, then they're actively working on activities, and that's shown in literature to allow for a much deeper understanding of concepts. And it also provides that opportunity for students to receive clarification on those tough concepts and to apply knowledge. And the instructor or teacher can directly see in the application of knowledge the depth of understanding that they have. This means that the role of the teacher becomes more of a guide. They guide student activity in class. I'm sure a lot of you do this already. It's more that perhaps using this flipped approach so that more and more class activity is devoted to that kind of interactive deep learning. So just to recap the change in roles. For teachers, it's a shift of focus that's less about covering content. It's actually more about constructing a deeper understanding through higher level thinking skills. So having students do things like analysis, application, and problem solving. For students, it's also a very dynamic change for them. In fact, some students may be resistant to this kind of learning. Many are used to being passive, so just passively sitting in class, taking notes and following instructions. Some students may actually feel that if a teacher doesn't lecture or doesn't play more of the active, directorial kind of role, then they're not actually teaching them anything. So for some students, they may actually have that perception. But I think what we're after, and I think what literature and our own experiences show, is that what works best for learning is when teacher is the coach, the guide, and the facilitator, and the student is focused on being an engaged participant. It does mean possibly a cultural sort of shift in the classroom. Maybe it takes reinforcing to get students sort of on board with that, but I think the engagement sort of speaks for itself, and students appreciate the experience of actually participating with their peers, and it becomes intrinsically motivating. This also means that the teacher is a learning architect, and it's not good enough just to put a video up on Blackboard and then that's enough preparation for students. Students need to be encouraged to do those activities at home. Marks will probably need to be assigned, otherwise it's not seen as an important activity. Also, whatever that flipped content is, the content itself needs some structure. So there should be an opportunity for not only review of that content, but that student using that content. Ideally, if there's some kind of assessment where you can determine that the student has actually completed the assignment and you can see that they are understanding some of the concepts, that's probably the best route to go. So they need to be guided through the content a bit rather than just given a link to watch and, you know, assuming that that's going to be sufficient. It could be as simple as some guiding questions that they need to answer in their discussion board, or again, assigning them some questions based on what they've just reviewed as content. In the flipped classroom, technology can play a very important role. I had mentioned that the flipped content can be interactive media like videos or interactive tutorials. Of course, there's open educational resources out there that you could choose to use. You can also use traditional materials. There's nothing wrong with textbook chapters and journals. It's making sure the content selected for them to review is going to tie to what they're going to do in class. I think that's the key. There's lots of technology that can support the flipped classroom. Same kind of technology that supports student engagement in class in general. So in addition to Blackboard, there's a number of apps that are out there. Some of these you probably are familiar with already in previous PD sessions. So there's student response kind of activities, you know, like in-class polling and sort of the polling games. So Kahoot is a great example of that. I think many of you may have used Padlet, which is an interactive bulletin board in a sense. All students can have access to a common board where they can stick virtual post-it notes, and that can be a great support for brainstorming or group research where there's after the students have made their contributions on the Padlet board, there can be a class debrief. And then there's some tools like Zaption, and this is a new sort of breed of tool. This kind of tool allows students to review content, and then as they're reviewing content, they're actually quizzed or they're asked to demonstrate their knowledge or to reflect on that knowledge in some way. Zaption, how it works is that it's a video, and that video is interrupted at points with review questions and review activities. That's how Zaption works. So this is a very brief overview of flipped learning. Hopefully it'll serve as a quick review for our interactions during our professional development session on Tuesday. Look forward to seeing you all there.